38 years ago, John Byrne began his fabled run on the Fantastic Four. His first issue was number 232 from July of 1981, and it gave rise to 5 years. 5 years of great Fantastic Four stories. Not every tale was gold. I mean, they're not gonna be, but the impact that his book had, it's still being felt today. Actually, I can't really say that for certain. I haven't actually read a Fantastic Four book in like a decade. But still, anyway, I'm here to talk about the first step of this monumental run, issue number 232, which is entitled Back to the Basics. Of course, John Byrne was credited as words and pictures. There's a guy here listed at under inks as Bjorn Hain, Heyn. You know what? That is an anagram of John Byrne. So he also did the inks. Jim Novak was on letters, Glennis Ween on colors, Jim Salicrup was the editor, and Joe Shooter was the editor-in-chief. In this issue, the evil alchemist Diablo, he's been living life on the down low for a few months. He's currently residing in a boarding house, and as the issue opens, he's doing his evil things with his evil potions, and he's hatching an evil plot of revenge against the Fantastic Four. He's really into some first-class soliloquizing here. Soliloquizing, is that the right word? He is just freaking talking to himself out loud in the way that villains do. You know, so the reader understands what's going on. Anyway, he's interrupted by Mrs. Mulligan. She's a nice old lady who's actually not nice at all. I was trying to be positive. But no, she's the landlady, and she comes banging on his door to make sure he ain't cooking nothing. After all, those smoky potions he's got going on, they gotta be filling the house with quite the stink. Well, Diablo assumes the identity of a sweet-looking old man and assures Mrs. Mulligan that he's not cooking. She leaves, and he immediately gets back to it and unleashes something to crush the Fantastic Four. What that something is, we don't quite know yet, but we're soon to find out. We cut to the Casa Tendolini hair salon where Sue Richards, or the Invisible Woman, she's getting herself a new do. Everything seems to be peachy keen when suddenly the salon is attacked by some sort of dirt monster. She tries to go invisible to take it on, but it quickly encases her in dirt, allowing it to see her. Meanwhile, Ben Grimm, the Thing, and his lady friend, do you think anybody ever just calls him the Thang? What's up, Thang? I doubt it. Anyway, he and his lady friend, Alicia Masters, they're leaving a Broadway performance of The Elephant Man. Ben has been moved to tears by the show. He is bawling like a giant rock baby. It begins to rain, and it doesn't take long for Ben to realize that it's only raining on him. But before he can even think about how freaking weird that is, he is suddenly surrounded in a bubble of water. He tries to break free so that he doesn't drown, but he's not having any luck at all. In Central Park, Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, he meets up with Frankie Ray. Apparently the two used to be a thing. Not a thang, but a thing. But anyway, she had a real problem with him using his powers, which, you know what? If you're going to date the Human Torch, get past that. Either don't date the man or get past it. They try to talk it out when Johnny is suddenly attacked by a creature made of air. Are you starting to see the pattern here? Okay, Invisible Woman, dirt monster, the Thing, water monster, and now Johnny, a air monster. In case you don't see the pattern, here's one more for you. In the Baxter Building, the headquarters of the Fantastic Four, Reed Richards, or Mr. Fantastic, he's doing science, as he is known to do. He's in his lab, he's doing science, and he's attacked by a creature made of fire. That's right! If you guessed that the Fantastic Four are being attacked by the band Earth, Wind, and Fire, you'd be wrong. Anyway, Reed escapes the fire creature by turning himself into a ball and bouncing the heck out of there. Once outside, he stretches out like a sail and he glides on over to Central Park where, lo and behold, he runs into Frankie Ray. She tells Reed that Johnny has been attacked by a wild thing and needs help. Not to be confused by the song. There seems to be a lot of song musical references in here. We've got Earth, Wind, and Fire, and now Wow Thing. And I don't think it's making Johnny's heart sing. Anyway, Reed quickly tracks him down and tries to smother the wind creature when fire arrives, and Reed's giant brain deduces that they might fare better were they to switch opponents. And so they do just that. And like that, just like that, they do it, tag team style. Back at the hair salon, Sue uses her invisible force field to burst out of her dirt prison and then make her escape out into the city, where she searches for the rest of the team. It's here where Byrne begins introducing new elements to the Fantastic Four mythos by having the Invisible Woman use her force field to lift her up and propel her down the street. Meanwhile, still surrounded by water and almost out of breath, Ben is still able to remain mobile, and he smashes into a sporting goods store where he is given a scuba tank by a friendly customer. Water doesn't like this and tries to drown the customer instead, and so Ben, having no real choice in the matter, hands the scuba tank over to save her life, leaving himself open once again for a drowning. But as water jumps at Ben, the creature is repelled away by one of Sue's force fields, who has shown up just in the nick of time. She then traps water in an invisible force bubble while Ben goes on out to take care of the dirt monster, or, as we're calling it, Earth. Reed arrives and he does what he does best. He does science. He has Sue free the water creature and instead capture the air creature in her bubble. Reed then grabs a pair of jumper cables that are just lying around on the ground and destroys the water using electricity. Science! Then he tells Ben to open a water main and use the water to turn the dirt monster into mud, destroying another foe. Science! Then at last, he has Sue increase the pressure within her force bubble, which forces the air creature, who is a gas form, into a liquid form, which then destroys it. Science! But what about Johnny and the fire creature? Fear not, true believers! High above the city, Johnny unleashes his Nova Flame, which consumes all of the oxygen around them, thus causing the fire creature to extinguish. And, like the others, the creature is destroyed. Science! Back at the Baxter building, Reed explains to Ben and Sue that the creatures that they fought were elementals, and besides Dr. Doom, who would never resort to such crude methods, the only other foe of theirs that would use alchemy against them is Diablo. But how can that be? Ben points out that Diablo died when they last fought, and of course Reed explains that they never saw a body, man. This is comics. You don't see a body, there's no death. He also explains that Diablo has escaped certain death before, and so it has to be him. It just has to be. But Reed's a science dude, and he has nothing he can use to trace mystical energies, so he makes a call. Later that night, as Diablo tries to skip town, he is confronted by the Fantastic Four, who have enlisted the help of Doctor Strange to track him down. So the Fantastic Four take their foe away in the Fantastic Car, leaving Doctor Strange alone in a dark alley. I don't know. I'm sure Doctor Strange has a way to get home, but still, that seemed kind of weird. But there you have it, the debut issue of John Byrne's Fantastic Four. And most of what I read nowadays are old books. Not because I'm a crusty old man who's stuck in his ways and who thinks that the books these days aren't near as good as they used to be. Hey, the books these days, these kids read. That's not the way I am. No, for me, it all comes down to money. I can't afford a monthly comics habit, so instead, I have two things: a monthly subscription to Comixology Unlimited and a library card. With that, it's just easier to read the old stuff. There's some fairly new stuff out there, and I do read the occasional Image book, but just trying to get back into Marvel and DC these days just feels darn near impossible. But the point I'm trying to make is that because I'm reading these old books, I like to take circumstances like John Byrne's Fantastic Four issue and try to imagine how that would be done today. When a writer is put on a new book, they typically have the first 6 to 12 months mapped out. Of course, I'm just assuming based on articles and such that I read, I'm not sure that every writer does that. But I feel like at the very least, most writers go into a title knowing the big story they want to tell, and many probably have an ending in mind. How they then go about telling that big story can differ. But for many, they are at the very least planting a lot of seeds right in that first issue, if not just jumping right into the big story right away. With this Fantastic Four tale, you got it done in one. It feels to me, more like Byrne just flexing his muscles. The next few issues are done in ones as well. And again, this is just conjecture, but to me, this is Byrne just easing into things. He's trying on the pants and he's walking around the store. He's pulling the egg carton from the cooler and he's inspecting each egg to ensure that none of them are cracked. Now, don't get me wrong. There's something very exciting about reading the first issue to a new writer's run and knowing once you hit the end that you are in for some pretty epic stuff. But at the same time, every story can't be epic and life-changing. I mean, after a while, it gets a bit boring, right? And really, the only thing out there that can excite my fanboy mind are the small stories or the one-offs, like number 232 of Fantastic Four. Was it the best issue I've ever read? No, far from it. But it was fun, and in the end, that's all I need.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Good job.